Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studios, this is Talking Politics, and I am the professor, Fernando Uribe. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. This is what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, there's a story that's kind of personal to me, and it's one that I think should open our eyes about sometimes the inequity within our criminal justice system. Now, let me just unravel this a little bit for you so you can get some of the details in the background and really understand why I'm so outraged. Now, it was reported this week by Insider NJ columnist Al Sullivan, who's been a regular on my podcast and who I consider to be the dean of Hudson County journalism, as he reported this week that Frank Rea, the longtime Hoboken political operative who orchestrated a vote-by-mail scheme while a city council candidate during the 2013 municipal election in the Mile Square City, was sentenced this past week in federal court in Newark. Now, the developer and one-time school board trustee was also ordered 1 year of supervised release and fined $50,000, which is due immediately, as he was sentenced this week again in federal court. Now, the sentencing of D.O. Braxton, one of his co-conspirators, who also pled guilty to conspiring with Rea, his sentencing was subsequently postponed. Now, in the hearing, though, that took place this past week, Superior Court Judge William Martini encouraged Rea to appeal his sentence, noting that the court had received more than 140 letters asking for leniency, and more than 35 people showed up to show their support during the sentencing phase. Now, folks, let me tell you something. I don't know about you, and I'm not saying this because, and this, by the way, this is not slander, this is not speculation. It's widely known in Hoboken. Frank Rea and his co-conspirators are morally reprehensible people. I mean, they are downright despicable, okay? And I've talked about it on this program before. I take the sanctity of elections very seriously. It's one of our most sacred rights as Americans. And even here at the local level, when we see it being perverted by political operatives such as Frank Rea and Matt Colicchio and D.O. Braxton and the rest of that little band of degenerates, what is it saying to us, regular people, when they're simply getting a slap on the wrist? That's what happened to Frank Rea this week. Now, I don't know about you, but if I didn't lack any faith in the criminal justice system or any sort of prosecutorial justice, believe me, I really, really lack it now. Because what is it telling us? We're not taking voter fraud seriously. We're just going to say, hey, you know what? Go ahead and do it. It's not a big deal. The federal government's not going to punish you for it. That's the message I got from Judge Martini during sentencing. And as far as I'm concerned, listen, all these letters and all these people that showed up during sentencing to plead for Frank Rea and to ask the judge for leniency, he doesn't deserve it. Folks, if you know anything about Hoboken politics, the guy is just downright despicable. And I'm not being hyperbolic here, okay? I'm not bloviating. I'm not being bombastic. I'm simply telling you the truth. Now, again, in the article referenced this week, prosecutors asked for a sentence of 2 years, claiming that the crime was extremely serious, which it is. But unfortunately, Judge Martini said that the people that testified against Rea were either co-conspirators or others who had something to gain by testifying against him. He said the people who had written letters were ordinary people who Rea had helped over the years. Now, again, Frank Rea was found guilty this summer of paying residents, most of them living within the public housing units in Hoboken, $50 for their votes. At the time, Rea was running for an at-large seat on the Hoboken City Council. Now, he finished 7th in a 10-person field for only 3 seats. Now, Frank Rea is also a developer, and he also ran unsuccessfully in a special election for mayor in November 2009, just a few months after the mayor at the time, Pete Camerano, resigned due to scandal and was subsequently sent to prison. Now, 3 others, again, Matt Colicchio, Lizaida Camas, and William Rojas, all pled guilty to their roles in cash for votes schemes, both in 2013 and 2015. Now, again, a number of witnesses testified at Rea's trial, and they were told that Rea offered them $50 to low-income voters living in subsidized housing units to cast their votes for the One Hoboken slate. Now, again, as well as a referendum that would have weakened current rent control laws in Hoboken. Coincidentally, Rea was a member of the One Hoboken slate. And folks, when I see this sort of injustice, it's a reminder of how much, again, faith we lose in the criminal justice system. And it reminds me also how prosecutors should be making more of an example out of degenerates like this. And I know what, and I applaud the prosecutors. They tried. But ultimately, I blame Judge Martini. What message are you sending, Judge, when people like Frank Rea and people like Matt Colicchio and the rest of them can get away with this? Do you know what $50,000 is for Frank Rea? It's a drop in the bucket. It's not even going to dent his wallet. Okay? 1 year of supervised release. Listen, if the maximum penalty, or the minimum at least, was 2 years in prison, he should have served it. And as far as his co-conspirators, if the judge is going to sort of make this rationalization, well, we can't really take it seriously because people pled guilty to testify against them. Well, they did something wrong. They should pay the penalty too. So what does it say when people like his accomplices are walking free? They should be rotting in jail along with Frank Rea. And I don't know about you, but there's a special place in hell for someone like Frank Rea and his accomplices here. Because you know what it tells us? It tells us that, you know what? Voting isn't serious. We should just disregard it. And you know what? There's a reason why not just Hoboken, but Hudson County and even New Jersey has garnered the notorious reputation that it has in national politics. Folks, there's even a book written called The Soprano State. Don't believe me? Look it up on Amazon. It's an excellent read. I suggest you try it out. And trust me, when you read it, it'll give you a whole new perspective about New Jersey politics. But again, when we talk about Hoboken, it's a reminder that, you know what, this cannot continue. And you know what, as far as I'm concerned, it's a drop of the ball by Judge Martini. Because what is it telling you? It's telling you, you know what, yeah, go commit voter fraud. We're not going to punish you. Meanwhile, in New Jersey, guess what? In 2019, we've arrested over 14,000 people for marijuana-related offenses. But we take that more seriously than we take voter fraud. And people are still incarcerated for it. Okay? What does it say when more serious offenses, you know what, like voter fraud, which is a federal crime, okay, doesn't get punished? But we continue to incarcerate people, and specifically people of color, both black and brown, for marijuana-related offenses. It's nowhere anywhere as harmful as what we're seeing here. You're taking away the sanctity of our electoral process. You're perverting the act of voting by corrupting it. And that's all Frank Rea did. That's all he and his just despicable bunch of accomplices did with this. So you know what, as far as I'm concerned, it's a reminder why judges are so lenient. Because you know what, at the end of the day, we should be taking this seriously. And it wasn't. And the message it sends is, you know what, if you want to commit voter fraud, hey, you'll get away with it here in New Jersey. Because guess what, if it happens in Hoboken, it's going to happen anywhere. Again, folks, it's a big disappointment for me and for many of my viewers today. Because you know what, when we look at Frank Rea and we look at his accomplices, they're doing everything they possibly can to corrupt the political process. And that's not hyperbole, folks. That's the truth. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. In the latest edition of the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. And it was indeed the Chief Operating Officer of the Hudson County Latino Foundation, David Miranda. Now, as a former serviceman and current COO of the organization, we had a nice conversation for over 75 minutes on the podcast. And here are some highlights that should hopefully capture your attention. First and foremost, I asked David what prompted him to start the Hudson County Latino Foundation, and really what are some of the major programs and services that they provide for residents countywide. Let's hear what he had to say.
If we want to get to it, you serve as the Chief Operating Officer for the organization, David, and I know that you're a dedicated family man. You are a veteran. Certainly, again, we're thankful for that, for your service. And what really prompted you? Was it sort of a chain of events, or was there just an epiphany you had that prompted you to start the Hudson County Latino Foundation? I know you serve as its Chief Operating Officer. You have a lot of great people that work with you, a lot of great volunteers. Certainly, you have Executive Director Carolina Jaquez that works hard with you. But what really prompted the birth of the Hudson County Latino Foundation?
Yeah. So the mission and really the vision and where we began to really think about about the foundation actually began about 2.5 years ago. About 2.5 years ago, we took a look at what was going on throughout Hudson County, specifically in Jersey City, where we used to live. Where actually I grew up in Jersey City basically all my life. High school, college, I did my undergrad here, and so one of the things that taking a look at the landscape that we noticed was that there was a lot of gaps throughout the community, throughout some different organizations, that some organizations really weren't fulfilling. And these gaps were, after we had spoken to about 100 people, we conducted a survey we found out that there were three key areas that the community, that the people really needed. These three key pillars were education, healthcare, and community development. And so, again, about 2.5 years ago, we set out, to address some of those issues, to address some of these gaps, and to develop programs that would deliver quality services across those three pillars of education, healthcare, and community development. And that's really how the foundation started. We spoke, with different nonprofits, different agencies, governmental agencies. So we spoke to a lot of people, trying to figure out how to deliver some of these, these key programs that we offer now to the community in Hudson County, to different demographic groups across, a myriad of languages. And so we started out to develop, these different programs. And one of the programs, our core program, is our financial literacy program. I'm very proud of that. In January 2019, we were actually one of 12 organizations in the state of New Jersey, which has since grown to 19, recognized by the FDIC as a member of the Money Smart Alliance. And so what that ultimately means is we have dedicated ourselves and committed ourselves to a higher level of not only teaching financial literacy, but also the level of coursework that goes into it. And so this is something that we actually pride ourselves on, right? Because we did notice that there were some organizations and some other financial institutions that would, basically say, hey, look, we're going to teach this course on banking, but then, offer a product, right? Or offer a different service that was specific to that institution or specific to that group. So we said, look, let's take a step back. What is it that the people need? And the people wanted a very condensed and abridged version of, hey, teach me what banking is. Teach me, the difference between what's a credit union versus a bank. Teach me, mortgage products. Teach me how to, recognize smart investment choices. So that's what we set out to do with the financial literacy course and program. And we've been pretty successful. Since 2017, we've actually taught 4 different courses. And we've actually come across and graduated about 35 different participants in the last 2 years. And it may seem like low numbers, but ultimately what that translates to is that every single course is a 16-week program. So it's very rigorous. We put people through, very intense, examples. They have homework to do. So it's really run like a college, college level course.
Without a doubt, it's such a worthwhile organization. Of course, you can check out more information about the Hudson County Latino Foundation by going to their website, www.hclatinofoundation.org. Moving along in the interview, David talked about exactly really what distinguishes the foundation from other nonprofits in the county, and more importantly, how vital transparency is for a nonprofit like this. Let's check it out.
And for anybody, let's say, listening tonight that is interested in starting their own nonprofit and are looking at the HCLF as a role model, which it is, and sort of a blueprint, which it has been, what's the best advice you can give our listeners tonight that are looking to either A, start their own nonprofit, or B, perhaps pursue a career nonprofit, which, let's be honest, isn't for everybody. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I know that for a lot of people, and I say this to my students all the time, that, when you find something to do with your life, as it pertains to a career or a calling, every occupation is different. And I always tell my students this, repeatedly, listen, if you're looking to get into government or social work or public service or nonprofit work, understand that they're challenging jobs, especially in the nonprofit section. You don't pursue this. You don't pursue this type of employment for riches. I mean, I know I didn't work for the government for 10 years because I want to get rich. That wasn't the case. I didn't pursue teaching in academia either for riches. It's the same thing that goes into nonprofit work. I think you go into it because you love it and you want to help people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. What's the best advice you can give our listeners tonight? Again, either starting a nonprofit or pursuing just nonprofit work.
Yeah. Fernando, so I get asked this question probably about once or twice a week. Whether it's from my friends or family or even prospective, even donors or partners. And, I think the best advice that I can give anyone is to follow, establish your principles and follow them. And, our principles, we're guided by three core values. The first one is integrity. The second is transparency. And the third one is commitment. And in terms of just integrity, every staff member, whether it's a board member, an intern, or even senior staff, we hold ourselves accountable. And what that means to us is that the general population, the public, is really entrusting us, right? They're trusting us with their money. They're trusting us to deliver a quality program and quality service. And so we hold ourselves to very, very high standards, ensuring everything from accounting policies are publicly listed. If you go on our website, you can take a look at that. I think we're the only nonprofit actually in Hudson County doing that. And so it's very important to us. Going into the transparency, one of our other core values, is that, there's been a growing disillusion of what charity work is about. And so as the HCLF, we want to return to that. We want to return to ensuring that the audience, who in this case is the general population, understands how we work, understands our policies, understands what we stand for, and even from a financial perspective, understand how we use our money, because it's important, right?
Undoubtedly, David was a wealth of information throughout the 75 minutes we spoke on the air. And of course, as 2020 approaches, the Hudson County Latino Foundation will continue being a resource for residents everywhere in Hudson County. And again, you can check out more of their programs and all information, and even to donate to them. Trust me, you want to do that during the holiday season. Check it out at www.hclatinofoundation.org. Once again, you can check out the episode in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talk on the Hudson.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/Talk on the Hudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.
And now to some local stories that should hopefully pique your interest. Let's move to Jersey City, and a shout out to my fellow journalist, John Hyannis via the Hudson County View. And he reported this week that Jersey City, during the recent municipal election, broke state records concerning the Board of Education races and also the Airbnb referendum. Now, let me just give you some details here really to sort of unpackage this for you. Now, again, as reported, there was record spending in not only the Board of Education races, but also in the ballot question concerning Airbnb. Now, as a reminder, the Airbnb ballot question asked residents if they agree with more regulations on the short-term rentals in Jersey City, which passed by an overwhelming margin of about 69% to the opposition of 31%. Now, it didn't come easily, though, as both sides combined for a record $5.6 million raised. And according to ELEC reports, it even went up as high as almost $6 million. Now, again, some of these numbers are still sort of like in limbo, but we'll certainly try to get you more clarity in the weeks ahead. But without a doubt, guys, listen, $6 million, that's a lot of money to spend on a ballot referendum. But you know what? There are a lot of forces that were invested in this, without question. And by far, listen, Airbnb contributed the most money to this campaign, doing sort of a whopping $4.2 million campaign called Keep Our Homes that opposed the ballot measure. Now, again, just give you a little bit more perspective here. Now, when a ballot election happens like it did in Jersey City, it costs more than even some of the statewide ballot initiatives. And even ELEC director Jeff Brindle published in a statement this past week. So without a doubt, we're looking at record spending, and we're also looking at a specific mission by Airbnb. Also, when we look at days before even the November 5th election, Hudson County View and other publications throughout the county, which included the Jersey Journal and the Hudson Reporter alike, had mentioned that $5.2 million had at least been raised for the cause through various fundraisers and also online, websites. Now, again, meanwhile, the Jersey City Board of Education races reported $704,000 raised and almost $600,000 spent on ads, which had absolutely crushed previous totals going back to Elizabeth Board of Education races in 2014, where $261,000 were raised and $458,000 were spent. So again, ladies and gentlemen, the Board of Education races for a lot of parents and for a lot of people in Jersey City mattered greatly. Without a doubt, we saw that funding for different tickets and slates were at a record pace. And listen, when we look at how invested we are in elections, folks, sometimes we get a little concerned about how much of an influence money plays in politics. Right? We hear about the Citizens United case at the Supreme Court, and even as it trickles down all the way to the 50 states alike. But let me tell you something. When we look at what happened in Jersey City, it might just start setting the precedent for future municipal elections, especially not just for the Board of Education, but any other ballot measure that, quite frankly, is going to generate a lot of debate and discussion for residents citywide. As we all know, Airbnb was defeated on November the 5th in the city council, and of course, Mayor Stephen Fulop rejoiced at the overwhelming margin of victory that just happened on Election Day. Listen, without a doubt, folks, it's democracy at its best where people come out to vote. But you know what? When we hear about that much money being spent, it kind of makes you wonder exactly whether or not the process is being corrupted altogether because of the almighty dollar. Well, we'll never really know, but I'll tell you this much. What I do know in 2020, Airbnb is going to have a lot more restrictions. And for a lot of residents in Hudson County's largest city, that's a breath of fresh air because at least it's holding one corporation accountable. And I've talked about it on this program before. Listen, I'm the first person to talk about free markets and the biggest advocate for capitalism that there is. But you know what? We need to hold certain corporations accountable. And that's what Jersey City residents did on Election Day by holding Airbnb accountable, by making sure that provisions and certain regulations remain intact. We can't let corporations go crazy, folks. At the same time, they provide jobs, they provide supplemental income for residents and homeowners alike. But at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with a little oversight. And you know what? That's what happened here in Jersey City. In other local news, let's go back to Hoboken. A affordable housing policy could at least go into effect by the end of the month here in 2019. Now, the City Council will be approaching this initiative and finding out whether or not Hoboken residents will benefit from any sort of provisions in a new affordable housing initiative. Now, again, as reported this week in the Jersey Journal by my fellow journalist Terry West, a year-long effort to increase affordable housing in Hoboken could at least come to a reality by the end of the year. Now, an amendment is scheduled this month with the City Council voting, which would increase the required portion of new developments for affordable housing from 10% to 15%. And it would also broaden which developments must set aside a fifth of its units as affordable, mandating that any project that receives finance or subsidies from the state fulfills the 20% quota. Guys, listen, we all know that Hoboken, like a lot of Hudson County municipalities, are becoming more expensive. Cost of living is increasing on a daily basis. Amenities continue to skyrocket, and rents are going out of control. And for a lot of Hudson County residents, especially lifelong residents, they're being priced out. And this is where affordable housing comes in. So I credit the City Council for wanting to raise this initiative. And no offense, I'd like to see it more than 15%. If anything, maybe 20 to 25% of units should be made available for affordable housing. Listen, I grew up in a working class family, and I'm thankful to say I'm middle class now. But I know the struggles of working class people. And for a lot of the working poor in Hoboken, affordable housing units is all they can manage. And you know what? Cities like Hoboken, again, I applaud them for taking the initiative with trying to make more affordable housing units available. But it shouldn't stop there. It should at least increase every other year. Now, I understand that it's a process, and I understand developers have considerable influence when it comes to housing and development in cities like Hoboken and really anywhere, not just in Hudson County, but in New Jersey. But ladies and gentlemen, understand something. We live in a densely populated area, perhaps the most densely populated county in New Jersey, if not the most densely populated state in the country. We're seeing more and more people moving to New Jersey, even though it's becoming expensive, and certainly the legislature in Trenton isn't making it easier for us. But without a doubt, even in our most urban areas, such as in Hoboken or Jersey City, I applaud the City Council for taking the initiative here, for trying to make affordable housing a reality for its residents. Now, I'll tell you something. Whether or not this passes by the end of 2019 and takes effect in 2020 remains to be seen. But I'll tell you this much, though. I applaud the City Council for wanting to tackle this, because there's far too many residents that are being priced out of their homes. We've seen it in Hoboken. We've seen it in Jersey City. Not so much in other municipalities in northern Hudson County, which include Union City, Weehawken, and West New York alike, and even in North Bergen. But I'll tell you this much. Residents are feeling the crunch. And when we don't see enough affordable housing, it's a reminder that, listen, gentrification is wonderful. I get it. Urban renewal is a great thing. And as an academic and as a social scientist, these are all phenomena that, hey, I find interesting and I find fascinating to study, to discuss, and to write about. But without a question, ladies and gentlemen, it's an issue that shouldn't go away. And coming up in 2020, I'm hoping that more municipalities take the issue of affordable housing more seriously. As I said, I've been very fortunate growing up in a working class family with my parents and even working now where I live in Union City. Let me tell you something. It wasn't easy. And I know that everybody sort of has the same benefits or the same access. But you know what? We can all do it. But a little help at the local level means a great deal. So again, bravo to the Hoboken City Council for tackling this issue. I'm hoping that it can be at least agreed upon and take effect in the new year. And I'm hoping that it sets the standard for other municipalities, whether it be Jersey City, whether it be Kearney, Harrison, or everywhere else in Hudson County, even Secaucus. Affordable housing, folks, is a necessity. I'd like to see that number go up, maybe not every single year, but at least, in small increments. Like anything else, it's progress. But we shouldn't remain stagnant, we shouldn't remain complacent, and we shouldn't just take it for granted. Let's keep working at it. Let's keep giving residents access to affordable housing. Folks, listen, not everybody can afford that nice rent or that nice condo on the water or in these brand new buildings on Tunnelly Avenue, on Boulevard East, or even on Palisade Avenue throughout parts of Hudson County. Listen, we need to make it available to everybody. And listen, this is not an elitist thing. It's not trying to discriminate against anybody. But municipalities understand the importance of it. And you know what? So should you. And that's our episode for this week. Folks, to check out all the excellent programming offered by the Hudson Media Group, go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and also www.livestream.com/HMGTV. In addition, the Hudson Media Group is proud to partner with NJ On Air, which also has exceptional programming as well. Check out their website, www.njonair.com. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group on Facebook and follow it on Instagram and Twitter. And also like NJ On Air on Facebook and also follow it on Instagram and Twitter as well. You can check out full episodes of the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. You can listen to episodes anywhere and anytime from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. And I urge you to check out all the episodes this year, as there's been a plethora of excellent guests throughout 2019. They've included Councilman Mike DeFusco out of Hoboken, Insider NJ columnist Al Sullivan, Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala, in addition to Assemblywoman in the 32nd Legislative District, Angelica Jimenez, Jersey City Chief Prosecutor Jay Cudnut, and many more. So again, check it out every Wednesday night live at 9 p.m. And trust me, it's the best commentary you'll hear anywhere but the Hudson County political scene, and you listen to it always on Blog Talk Radio. Folks, as a reminder, if it's unfiltered, unbiased, and unafraid, you know you're watching Talking Politics. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.